Luton losing to Aston Villa at Kenilworth Road 3-2 keeps them in the bottom three instead of Forest. An important win for Aston Villa too, Myles. Not least because it kind of highlighted the strength and depth of Villa's bench this season, calling on Digne and Moussa Diaby at a time when they did. Really changed the momentum of the game because Luton fought back in the second half. But you must be happy with those substitutions, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've been talking for so long about the injuries that Villa have suffered this season and how depleted the squad is. But that depth is what you need to get you over the line in a season like this, particularly if you want to be competing at the top end. So very often we see those two exact substitutions, that Bailey comes off and Diaby comes on, and it's just a fresh pair of legs to tire out that fullback. And really often Moreno comes off for Digne. So it was nice to see that come to fruition in this game and pay off for the goal, because that squad has a lot of talent in it, and I hope that they hold on to as much of it as possible, because now they sit 11 points above Man United, and if fifth does get you Champions League, I'd like to say it's almost wrapped up for Villa based on this win.
Yeah, well, I think it was a game where it really tested their resolve, because I feel like at 2-0 up at half-time, they were kind of a bit complacent for large parts of the second half, especially to begin with. But yeah, I think the timing of the Digne goal was superb, and Diaby's ball was brilliant.
Yeah, and to be fair, so was Luiz's for Watkins' second goal, like to spot him in that area. And 4 out of the 5 goals in this game came from set pieces, because both teams seem to be really effective at using set pieces to score, but terrible at defending them. Yeah. So it was a recipe for disaster, really, for both defending sides. But yeah, the creativity and the way that they deployed those sort of opportunities in the game were always going to be crucial. You know the kind of football Villa are going to play. They're going to want to move the ball and control it as much as possible. And actually, that second half, Luton didn't let them do that and made the most of the set pieces. It's good, though, that Villa were able to overcome that hurdle, because we've seen it a few times this season, actually, where Villa have taken a comfortable lead and then not been able to hold on to it. Look at the 2 United games, for example. Like, both of them, really, you would have expected Villa to have done better in. One of them, obviously, they had a healthy lead in. And then Forest the week before, they took a healthy lead and let Forest back into the game. So you've got to be careful of not being complacent and just passing the ball around when teams will attack you. It's just good that they've got the depth to get it over the line like they did today, this weekend even.
Let's talk about Ollie Watkins, shall we? Because obviously in the first half, it was all about him and his finishing. And as you say, both goals, 2 very different goals as well, but both finished superbly again. And you can't fault the service he's getting as well. That really helps. We mentioned that the other week, didn't we, about how the midfield really supports the attack brilliantly. But his finishing is on another level this season. And what's that, 16 goals now, 10 assists as well in the Premier League. Probably in line for Golden Boot if he keeps going at this rate anyway. But I guess my question for you is, what's his ceiling? Is this his peak season? And can you see him almost displacing Harry Kane as a starter for England? Because they're 2 very different players, but I can see him contributing a lot to that England front line.
Yeah, I don't think he'll displace him. I think that they could rotate for certain fixtures, or at least he's a great option. Look, you never know. Like, Kane picks up an injury before the tournament. It's excellent to know you've got a striker in red hot form that could come in and replace him as almost an equal replacement right now, you'd say, because the thing that he's contributing to this team, look, we talked earlier about how Foden and Saka are really amazing attacking outlets for England. And if you've got someone in the middle who can provide for both of those players, as well as finishing off from their creativity, well, that's exactly what you need. Watkins this season has now had more goal contributions than anyone in the league and is only 2 behind Erling Haaland in the Golden Boot race. So that's an incredible achievement for a player at Aston Villa. I think only 3 other players have ever got 16 Premier League goals or more in a season for Villa. So yeah, this is top form from him. He's at that age where he's at the peak of his career. He's pushing to get into the Champions League with Aston Villa, which is amazing. So I think it's only up from here towards the end of the season. And then I hope that he replicates it next year when he's on Europe's biggest stage, because he will be.
I have to keep checking myself that it was only last season that Unai Emery took over from Aston Villa. It feels like some kind of weird fever dream where Villa have suddenly become world class. But it hasn't been an overnight job at all, has it, Dave? Villa's kind of rise to ascendancy has been kind of almost meticulously planned from the appointment of Emery, which we talked about in some detail. But looking at their fixtures, you know, they're playing Ajax and then Spurs for top 4 contention and then Ajax again. It is like some otherworldly experience Villa fans are experiencing in a minute, isn't it? And they must be absolutely enjoying it.
It's been a rapid climb, hasn't it, to where they've got to now. If you just think where they were even 18 months ago, 2 years even. So you've got to give massive praise to Unai Emery. But yeah, you're right. I think, this next week is probably the biggest week of the season and could go a long way to kind of having a big say where they're going to be. I think that game against Spurs is absolutely huge. That will be a priority. Let's be honest. The Ajax game is a big game, and they'll obviously go out to win it. And I'm sure they'll field a very strong team, but they're in a position at the minute where they've actually got, they've had a few players back. You mentioned Digne, who came in, made obviously a massive impact in this game. I think they'll make a couple of changes. Especially with the game sandwiched in between the two Ajax games. I think that will give them an opportunity to reevaluate after that first Ajax game. If they don't get the result they want, they'll be able to see where they are after the Spurs game and think, okay, we can adjust now.
The thing is, I'm confident that Villa will end the season very well and will claim a Champions League place. I honestly do think that, particularly if they can get the 5th place as Champions League in England. And actually, we were talking before we recorded, weren't we, that the irony is that the better Villa perform in Europe, the more likely it is that 5th will be okay in the league. So what do they prioritise? But there's 11 games left. They're 11 points clear of Man United. It's not going to be easy. Of the games they've got left, they've still got to play Spurs, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. They've even got West Ham away. They've got Brighton. They've got Chelsea. There's some difficult fixtures in there, don't get me wrong, particularly with a run in Europe embedded in between it. But like we started this conversation with, the strength in depth that we're seeing in attacking areas in particular, if they can get players back fit and firing like that, then I think it's only up from here. It's in Villa's hands, and that's amazing. With 11 games left, it is in our hands whether we get top 4. Now, you're right, Mike. Asked me that question a year ago, and I'm 2 years ago, and I'm laughing in your face. So it's fantastic, and the quality in this squad and the quality of the manager is really showing.
I'm just trying to get my head around the notion that Villa could potentially shuffle their pack and rest players against Ajax in either of the legs in a major European competition. That, for me, is the mark of progress, because, I mean, you've got teams like Brighton, who we'll come on to in a moment, who are struggling to kind of keep up with the demands from a squad point of view. And now there wasn't much between Villa and Brighton, even a few months ago, in terms of the level they were playing at. But the way they've built the squad and the players they've signed have made them equipped to deal with this, not only challenging for top 4, but for competing in Europe as well. It still blows my mind, mate. You must be thrilled.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't hamstring us this summer with kind of profit and sustainability and FFP. And I hope we don't have to kind of shift anyone to kind of keep up with that. Obviously, the brand new kit deal with Adidas will be huge to contributing towards that. Prize money of potentially winning a European competition and qualifying for Champions League will be huge. And that will do a lot. And that is how the future of a club is built. Like, we obviously saw how Brighton managed to invest a bit more in the summer, bringing in players like João Pedro from qualifying for Europe. Newcastle obviously are a bit hamstrung with how much money they've been spending because they're not bringing in enough. So we've got to learn lessons from that, not go over the top with it. And actually that means is you need a coach to develop the players that are already there. Now, look at that starting 11 this weekend. How many of them were Emery signings? Well, Tielemans came in. I think that's it. That's like, Moreno. Tielemans and Moreno were the only 2 that started that were new since Emery's come in. So he is developing the players that are there as well. It's not I'm spending hundreds and hundreds of million. And I think he'd do that again if we got into the Champions League.